encounter our Egyptian colleagues. So for every one of you that has decided today to come and join us in our biannual meeting in Cairo, a warm welcome and a hearty thank you. I especially would like to thank my colleagues, Dr. Al-Nazir, Professor Dr. Al-Nazir, and Professor Dr. Shahrari, for inviting us to hold our biannual meeting in this important institute and center in Egypt. As you all know, I was born and raised in Egypt, and I was born and raised in a scholarly family. And therefore, the National Center for Research in Egypt has been something that I have been familiar with for many, many years. But in my most recent visit to the center in Doha, and the warm reception by the president of this institute, and then visiting the many labs and visiting the many scientists working within this institution, gave me a great sense of pride and a great sense of confidence that there was still the initiative, the motivation, the intelligence, and the genius that makes Egypt the great country that it is, and will make it even a greater country in the future. So thank you again, and thank you all. As has been mentioned earlier, the mission of our association has many facets and many aspects, but one of its most essential facets is to create bridges between ourselves as Egyptian American and Egyptian Canadian scholars in the various fields of scholarly endeavors and our colleagues in Egypt, emphasizing the importance of finding common interests between us and finding mutual ways in which we can strengthen each other. You with some questions and answers, and we on the other side also with some questions, but also maybe some answers. We look forward to establishing this mission in the future in a way that is even stronger than it has existed in the past. But the only way for us to be able to establish this mission will be through your motivation in creating personal relationships with some of us who are with you here today. During your lunch break, do not go and sit with somebody that you already know, but please go and seek a face that you do not know. Introduce yourself and make a new friend. Maybe by creating these new friendships, we can reach out to each other and establish something important for our beloved mother country, Egypt. It is extremely impressive to see the level of investment in infrastructures in Egypt over the past 2 decades. This infrastructure in the environment and in the human infrastructure has shown early signs of success. It is an investment that was a wise choice and was an essential choice. But now for Egypt to move forwards to the next stage of taking its role in the modern and industrialized world, we need to understand that development has 2 perspectives. There is a horizontal perspective, but there is also a vertical perspective. Egypt has invested very successfully in the horizontal perspective. And without that investment, a vertical perspective cannot stand because it will not have a sound basis. But it is now time for us to begin considering whether it is wise to choose areas of emphasis and areas of excellence based on the resources of this country, based on the background of scientific endeavors in this country, so that we can present ourselves to the entire world as tops in certain fields globally. This is a model that has been pursued by many countries at our stage of development in Asia, in Europe, and in Latin America. And areas such as the pharmaceutical industry, areas such as software development and production, areas such as alternative sources of energy, etc., are being developed today in ways that the world has never seen before. Not in the traditional industrialized models. In fact, countries in Western Europe and in North America are looking towards younger brothers and sisters in the developing world with some degree of amazement, and I can tell you, a little bit of worry. Because some of these countries have reached a level of excellence in these industries and aspects of technology that are unprecedented and somewhat unexpected. Egypt is very well positioned to think of certain areas of excellence such as these and to endeavor to capture leadership in some of these areas. I cannot pretend that we can necessarily help you, but all I can say is we can try. But the best way for us to try is when we know which areas such as these have been chosen, and for us to recruit our intelligence, our motivation, and our energy to assist you if we are able. Another area that I wanted to emphasize today is the concept of higher education. Egypt today has a population nearing 70 million people. I would like you to think for a minute, how many institutions of higher learning exist in the United States today? Their population is almost 4 times our own. In the United States today, there are 2,500 institutions of higher learning. We continue to assume that we have reached maximum penetration within the Egyptian population in higher learning and professional training. That is probably not true. There is still a great deal of potential and a great deal of opportunity for us to reach even higher levels of penetration in professional training and higher education. I do not necessarily mean more universities, but I certainly mean having endeavors towards very specific areas of professional training that are meaningful to the future of this country. Another issue that is of tremendous importance to me and to us as professionals and scholars who practice outside of Egypt is the issue of continuing to have open doors and continuing to have opportunities for young scientists and young scholars and young professionals who choose not to continue to work in Egypt, but to be good ambassadors and ambassadresses for Egypt in the world, such as myself and many of my colleagues who are with you in this hall today. We believe that the best Egypt can send abroad is a young Egyptian genius. That person, man or woman, be he in France, Austria, Germany, Britain, Sweden, Canada, the United States, or elsewhere, is the most significant representation of what Egypt is and who the Egyptians are. I mention this to you today because we are faced with an impending crisis. As you may or may not already know, because of many of the international trade agreements, such as GATT and others, unless our institutions of higher learning are accredited, no doctor, no engineer, no professional will be allowed to practice outside of Egypt again. This is a very significant challenge. And I am delighted, I am truly delighted that Egypt is beginning to realize the importance of this priority. And during our plenary session, we have a representative, in fact, the head of the Committee for Accreditation and Quality Assurance within the higher education in Egypt, who will tell us about the Egyptian model and the Egyptian initiative. But I want you all, as scholars, researchers, and professionals, to maintain that dialogue and understand and emphasize its importance. The one thing I want to, and I'm not going to be much longer, so I hope I won't bore you too much, but there are two more things that I would like to emphasize. The first of these two things is the importance of the Egyptian woman scholar. Living in the West today, we are on a daily basis in touch with another very important crisis, which is the breach that is beginning to widen between the industrialized world and our part of the world in their understanding of who we are and what we represent. I must admit that your brothers, and now I'm talking to my sisters, I must admit that your brothers have probably made a mess of it. Maybe we were not such good representatives of you, and therefore have caused, in ways that we did not mean, a lot of misconceptions and misunderstanding of the role that you play, not only in our society, but also in our families.